Welcome back. If you're willing to spend just a few minutes with me, I can teach you how to properly disassemble and reassemble a Smith Wesson wheel gun. And I can teach you how to do it only the way that an armorer can possibly understand, somebody who has actually learned from the factory how to do these things. Smith & Wesson never afforded the opportunity for any private person to learn how to build or maintain Smith & Wesson revolvers. As far as I know, that's still the case. I'm not sure what their current policies are, but when I was there, it was strictly military and police active duty personnel. So nobody from Brownells could learn how to do these techniques. No private gunsmith could learn how to do these techniques, and no private gunsmithing school could learn how to do these techniques. So what I'm going to show you may possibly be shown for the first time on YouTube, and unless you watch my previous video, these things have never been demonstrated before. So step over the bench with me and we'll get into it. Now, contrary to what is so often seen, these are quite simple to disassemble and reassemble. People make it far too complicated, and they use tools that are far more complex than you need. All you need to have is a good screwdriver. You say, wait a minute, that's not a good screwdriver. That's not a gunsmith screwdriver. No, this is a Smith & Wesson screwdriver. This is what they taught me to make when I was there. You notice it's got a straight shank, and it's got a long, long taper. It gives me great visibility so that I know exactly where the end of that blade is, and so it doesn't go astray and scratch the side of this frame. Once you scratch that, that's the end of it. You got a brand new blued steel gun, and that's irreparably damaged. You got to protect that as much as you can, and the first thing is to be able to see what you're doing. So you don't want to have a big bulbous shank like this, like you find on so many so-called gunsmith screwdrivers. You don't want to have a hollow ground blade that also obscures your vision. You want to be able to see the tip of that blade at all times. I made this screwdriver blade. It's a proto that I purchased back in the early 70s, and I've been using it ever since, only on Smith & Wesson screws, on nothing else. I don't want to cause this fine screwdriver to get damaged. The width of the blade should be about 20 thousandths of an inch narrower than the actual screw head. That way there you don't end up reaming a counterboring a hole where your screw goes and damaging your gun. And the blade should fit, like I say, should have a very long taper. The taper starts about 1.5 inches back here, so it's a long gradual taper. It has the same basic effect as a hollow ground blade, but I can see all the way to the end. It's a hardened shank. That hardened shank will never twist or chip or in any way cause a compromise. And I believe that would be stainless steel because it's not plated. I didn't file off any plating when I tapered that down. I softened it first with a torch. I got the blade soft. I basically just heated it up until it got cherry red. Then I filed it down. I took off this tapered carpenter's side, and then I just simply dressed the end of the screwdriver so that the screwdriver would fit all the way to the bottom of the screw head, and make sure it's absolutely dead square in the end, so it fits to the bottom of the screw slot and fits along the edges, the sides of that, both sides of the screw slot snugly. So that's all you have to have, nothing else. We'll start out first of all I've got this fine Victory model here. Every time you use a screwdriver with a gun like this, any kind of gun, put your thumb in a position where you're protecting that blade from wandering. I'm basically guarding that on one side, and as I unscrew it, center your blade. Your handle of your screwdriver should also be quite comfortable. You don't want to have a big, huge handle, and you don't want to have a short shank and a short handle. You want to have a long That's about a 4-inch, 3.5-inch long shank, and I've got a nice long but narrow handle, so I can spin that. You notice right there, I'm able to spin that nicely. I'll just spin it until I hear that screwdriver click. When I hear that screw click, I know that I've backed it out fully out of the escutcheon on the opposite side. Now here's a thing that you want to be very sure of. Never, ever, ever do what I see, this boneheaded thing where you stick a screwdriver in and pry it up, and you scar the back of the gun, and you scar the stocks, and all those things. Take your screwdriver and push it straight through, and you'll disengage the back side of the grips. The stocks right here will just come right off like that, and obviously now you've got an open skeleton. You can push that side right off. First thing you do now, it's good to have just a pad. I have just a simple padded surface here to work with. This is your yoke screw. You want to remove the yoke screw, and also too, you want to have good lighting so you can see what you're doing. Guard that screw, back it off. It requires no heavy lifting to get that screw undone. Don't use any power techniques. That's your yoke screw. Place that aside separately. That goes back in that first position right there. Turn the revolver over, open the cylinder. Never, ever, ever slide it out this way. Grasp the cylinder and keep it in position as you pull the yoke forward. Pull the yoke straight out and up. You don't want to scar anything here. You want to make sure that you always remove the yoke. This old Victory model has got a knurled end which prevents removal, but most revolvers you're going to have a straight shank and it'll come right off. Set that aside with that yoke screw. Now turn your attention to the work screws and just remove those. And again, you notice I'm twirling with my fingers. This is and keep that screwdriver always straight and perpendicular to the gun. Never allow it to turn at an angle. Take time to position that blade. Take as much time as you want. Don't rush, because if you'll be really sorry if you scar the side of that gun. Even stainless steel guns, you're going to have a scratch there that you can't remove. So once I backed out these work screws, now with most Smith & Wesson revolvers, you're going to find that this rear screw, what I call, this is the number 1, number 2, number 3 screw. This rear screw here will oftentimes be a flat-headed screw. But you put those aside. This is where people get very complicated. They take mallets and they start banging here, or they do this, that, or the other thing, or they take dowels and they start striking, and all of a sudden this side plate flips up and it dances around on top of a beautifully blue gun. Holy smokes, you don't ever do that. Bring your pad over to the side of the bench. Place your hand underneath the side plate. With one simple wrap, keep that hand under the side plate, and there you go. The side plate is off, it's safe, and you're not scarring anything. Now, if you've got a model of revolver that's been made since 1944, this one here has got, this one's got right here a integral hammer block. That was found to be unsatisfactory. A sailor died when that hammer block failed, and he was hit with a bullet that came from a gun that dropped. So ever since then, Smith & Wesson almost lost their U.S. government contract due to that accident, and the Navy turned their attention to Colts. So Smith & Wesson engineers quickly came up with an alternative where that was replaced with a complete slot on the side of this side plate, and the traditional hammer block was installed. Place this face side up so that it's not, in other words, like that. Now take your screwdriver and you don't have to remove the strain screw, just simply back it off. Until it no longer has any contact with the mainspring. Remove the mainspring. Now, this is where people get complicated. There's no tool for this. This is the tool. This is all you need. I have no idea why Brownells has to sell a tool for $20 to do this simple maneuver, which is actually made more complicated by a tool such as that. This screwdriver is what you use. You place the screwdriver behind, you want to make sure the screwdriver is behind this shoulder right here. You don't want to be placing it up on the finished side of the revolver. Place your, and this is also why this should be nice and smooth. This should be dressed nice and smooth so there's no sharp edges. Place the screwdriver with the blade vertical and underneath the rebound slide, to the left of the rebound slide retention post, the spring retention post, simply lift straight up. When you get it to this point, that spring isn't going anywhere. That spring is still retained by that post. Now I take my screwdriver and I place it here behind the spring, and I simply allow the spring to come back on the screwdriver. And that's all there is to it. And for those of you who wish to make your guns a little bit easier to pull on double action, you can clip 1.5 turns off this end of the spring and bury it back at no more than 1.5 turns. Not 2, not 1 3/4, no more than 1.5 turns. Otherwise, you're not going to have a rebound slide that does what it's supposed to do, and it's not going to return your trigger back to battery all the way forward. Then you got a dud, a gun that just simply is worthless. This technique is also very simple. Use your middle finger, your bird finger, take that one right there, place it in front of the thumb piece, draw that thumb piece to the rear, bring the bolt to the rear. You notice how that bolt slid back. That allows the tail of the hammer to come back. Pull the hammer to the rear. That's all you do. And when your hammer is to the rear, simply lift the hammer straight out, straight up. It lifts up in that direction. Removing the trigger has to be done very, very carefully. Removing the trigger, make sure you guard this hand. This hand is very, very sharp, and it will wipe a nice scratch right across this cheek piece right here. You don't want to have the cheek of this recoil plate getting scarred. So take your finger, pull it to the rear, not too far because you're gonna there's a spring here. You don't want to bend you don't want to bend the post which is on the back side of this hand. It's not a pawl on a Smith & Wesson, it's a hand. Lift straight up. Place your finger underneath this trigger and just slide it straight up. Don't twist it because it's going to bind on the post, and you don't want to bend the post either. Now, don't let reassembly intimidate or frustrate you. Doing this only requires just a special technique, and it doesn't require any special tools. This part of your hand right here, this is a hand, not a pawl in Smith & Wesson lingo. This is very dangerous to the finished surface of your gun. That has scarred up many, many, many revolvers through the years. The best way to control that surface is to put your finger on it. In other words, don't hold it here. This is not the appropriate place to hold it because there's nothing near to grab your finger, and it's going to slip off, and it's going to scratch that cheek of the recoil plate. You don't want to do that. You don't want to leave a nice bright line down there. So grab the pointy part of that, it's called the throat of the hand. Grab that with your finger, rotate the trigger lever up. Everything is horizontal now. Lift the hand to the rear, position the trigger. The trigger is on the post, and there's two sides to that trigger. There's a top and bottom to that trigger, so you've got to slide it gently down without any force. It just slides straight down onto that post. Once it's all the way down, then your finger will come off of the throat of the hand and allow it to go into the window. Do that one more time. To the rear, grab hold of that hand right by the throat and lift it straight up, straight back and straight down, and guide it in. And that's all there is to it. We've got that done. Make sure that your clipped portion of your recoil spring, your slide spring, is inside that rebound slide. You want to bury it in there. The finished coil should be back here. Position that right over the stud. With the blade of the screwdriver horizontal, in other words, with the blade looking at you, simply press straight in until the bottom of the coil grabs hold of the post. Now you turn your blade vertically and push in, and then down. Rotate it straight down. Vertically up and out, and then horizontally in and down. Reinstalling the hammer is quite simple. First of all, pinch the top of the hammer with your thumb and forefinger and pull the stirrup out of the way. With your other hand, take hold of the trigger. With the second finger of your left hand, bring the bolt to the rear. In other words, grab the thumb piece right here and bring the bolt to the rear. Now you can squeeze the trigger. Don't try to squeeze the trigger until you've got that bolt to the rear, because it's not going to operate correctly. You want to pull that straight to the rear. Rotate this hammer so that the front of the hammer fits into that spot that's provided for it right up here, and just allow the hammer to slide right down. Let's do it again. Lift it up. I've got my second finger holding back on the thumb piece to hold that bolt to the rear. I've got my trigger depressed. I'm just simply positioning right over that with the hammer cocked to the rear, and just let it drop down on top of it. Always, always, always keep your thumb. This is your side plate right now. If you let that go and you release your trigger, you could cause a nice scar on the back of your gun. So just simply finish it off like that. Now we'll put the stirrup connected to the mainspring right there. Make sure your mainspring is positioned into its notch right here. Just wind your strain screw tight all the way. Never trim your strain screw. Never loosen it. Never do anything other than what the factory has set it at, because that is required for proper ignition, so that you have full, good, consistent ignition. You know, sometimes you can have a gun that goes off, but that doesn't mean that the flame of the primer is conducting itself properly. It not only has to go off, but it has to go off with consistent ignition. That has been proven by many different people that have tried different striking force on firing pins, and in the case of a Smith & Wesson, that's a hammer nose. The older ones are hammer noses. So you'll notice that with this revolver, this is a 4-screw revolver, and yet I didn't remove this top screw. And that was discovered many years ago, that Smith & Wesson realized the factory personnel, when they were repairing these guns, they just simply left that screw in place. So they started manufacturing the gun so that it had essentially a undercut there, and the side place would go under it. So they obviated the use of that screw. So you don't have to take it out. You can just simply, now if you've got a hammer block, make sure you put your hammer block back on, and the egg-shaped hole will go on top of the stud that's right here on this rebound slide. Position it about halfway. It shouldn't be at either end of that egg-shaped hole. It should be about halfway, and then you'll find that the slot will line up correctly. So I'm just simply placing this. I'm placing this end of the side plate underneath that screw, making sure it's all lined up. And you don't want to have any misalignment where you're going to scar something. So that's all we're doing. Once I'm sure that I'm in place, now you can take the back end of your plastic handle and gently tap it into place. You don't want to be drawing these side plates down by the force of the screw. The screw can do that, but that's not a good way to treat your screws. Those are very, very fine threads. We're going to replace the work screws. And again, get your thumb into position there so that it can guard that screwdriver blade and prevent it from walking on you. Make sure that you're perpendicular to the gun and just twirl it right in gently. Don't press hard, because anything you do with that screwdriver blade is going to be ugly. So just wind it right in snugly. That's all you have to do. There's no torquing involved. There's no special amount of force. You put it in and turn it until it's snug. That's all you do. It'll never back out. Turn it in, twirling it, keeping my thumb in place to catch that screwdriver and snug it. Now replacing pull the yoke outward, position your cylinder over the window, and slide the yoke straight in. And I'm catching my cloth here. Slide it straight in and close it. Close it before you put in your yoke screw. Again, keep that thumb where it belongs. Guard that screwdriver from sliding out, and keep it perpendicular. That's it. That's all we have to do. That gun has been disassembled, reassembled, and everything is fine. So we're all back together. That's all there is to it. It's very simple, no special tools. Anybody can do it. If you own a Smith & Wesson, you ought to know how to be able to get into it to clean it out every now and then. Be very careful with that screwdriver. The screwdriver has done more damage. Screwdrivers and those hands that fly around have done so much damage to these guns through the years. It's a shame to see it. So pay attention to what I showed you, and you'll have no difficulties whatsoever. And you'll be taking them apart and putting them back together like a pro, like they do it at the factory right there at Smith & Wesson. So thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. And for all my Patreon donors, I really appreciate your assistance. Your financial help is out of this world. It's helped me out. And with this day and age of costs are going up tremendously. So everything that I have to do when the weather comes better and I get out and do some shooting, it's going to cost a lot of money. So hit that subscribe button and hit the like button too if you like what you're seeing here, and tell your friends. God bless.